my basic philosophy when it comes to good players, and this is what the Eagles do.
Right.
If you get good players, you pay them.
John, I want to go through a couple, just kind of, we're always into the nitty gritty of like every single day, but I do kind of want to get your perspective on some of the macro trends of the early season here. We are 7 games in. We're going into week 8 now. And I'm looking for a John McMullen update on where you are on contenders, pretenders, the NFC East, and things alike. So, John, let's start in the NFC East. What are you thinking about the NFC East right now? Just power rank it 1 through 4 for me off the top of your head on where we are, because it's kind of a funny division right now. The Giants have showed flashes of life. The Commanders, they're not going to have Jaden Daniels once again this week. They dropped a game to the Cowboys last week and didn't look very good in that game. The Cowboys are obviously, hold the number 1 offense in football, and anybody who's watched some Cowboys games this year, let's call a spade a spade. That offense is humming right now. And then you have the Eagles who, despite some adversity this year, they still sit at 5-2, which is damn impressive. Where are you, John, on the NFC East right now?
Yeah, I think Dallas has flip-flopped back with Washington to being number 2 because of that offense that you mentioned, and Dak. If their defense was a little bit better, and they're another team when you talk about the trade deadline, proving the stupidity of Jerry Jones. They're looking for a pass rusher, shockingly.
I think you're looking at that a little harsh, John, honestly. I don't think about it. If they would have paid 47 for Micah, they would have had no extra first round picks. Now they would have had Micah Parsons, don't get me wrong, but let's just envision they send a 1 and a 3 for Max Crosby. He's making less than Micah. You're probably gonna take on less of a contract, and they picked up an additional first round pick and a run stopper. So if they make a move, it might not look so bad, but I do understand they need an edge rusher, and they got rid of one of the best ones in the league. So I understand that.
Well, he's already under contract for whatever 36 or 37, whatever it is. But
yeah, but if you trade for it, you take on that full thing, or do you take on because
generally, and I have to look at his contract. Generally, it's backloaded, so you're actually taking on more. Now the signing bonus up front, you don't have to worry about. But
right.
you're and then the second part, you're going to have to make him happy. They're in the same boat with a lesser player. Max is very good, don't get me wrong, but he's not Micah. So it's not like you're not going to have the same issues. He probably thinks he's already underpaid.
Yeah, right.
So no, I'm not going to pass on Jerry, because even if he pulls that off, which he's not, because the Raiders aren't going to trade him, but I digress. But they're looking for an edge rusher, and they had, one of the best edge rushers. You're right. I mean, but my basic philosophy when it comes to good players, and this is what the Eagles do.
Right.
If you get good players, you pay them, and you have to be correct. But I think that the Mike has proven himself. And he's certainly playing well in Green Bay with the new contract, so that's not a problem. Yeah, I just think it's a dumb way of being football, like of running your football team when you have players like that.
Yeah.
When I boil down AJ Brown, and the Eagles aren't trading AJ Brown, I boil it down to they don't let good players out of the building, players like that out of the building. They try to acquire players like that. Now, at some point, if it continues to go down the route of rabble-rousing, whatever you want to call the social media stuff, maybe that changes the philosophy and there's other things. But generally, from a football perspective, they don't let players like that out of the building. It's just a bad way of doing business. And that's what the Cowboys did. And you can imagine, and again, the GM's job, and he's not technically the GM, but he is. A GM's job is more than just 1 year. I talk about it all the time with Howie, but everybody wants to rate Howie on 1 year. So if I'm rating Jerry Jones on 1 year, well, he'd have a Super Bowl contender if he had Dak playing like the way Dak's playing and Micah Parsons was there.
Right. That's
They'd
fair.
be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Not saying they'd go. You can talk about their playoff history and what they've done and yada, yada, yada. But they'd be in the conversation with everybody we talk about, the Lions, the Eagles, the Rams, the Packers. The Packers would probably be out of that, and the Cowboys would be in it. And the reason why is Micah Parsons.
Right. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, I always thought, and I like Micah. I'm not one of the Eagles fan that doesn't. 47 is a big number, dude. That is a fucking monster.
Well, it's the cost of doing business.
Is it though? I mean, I don't see another edge rusher anywhere close to that. I mean, Myles Garrett's what, 40?
Well, again, you can and yeah, but again,
would you rather go 15 million cheaper for Max Crosby? I get it. Max Crosby's not as good of a player and he's older.
First of all, that's nonsense. Again, the only thing that matters is the guaranteed money. So obviously the agent puts out the most, and he's never going to see the end of that contract. It's going to be redone. It's going to be reworked. So you got to look at the first 2 years. You got to look at the guaranteed money, and that's top of the line. But then everybody else falls into place. That's how NFL contracts work. And when Miles is probably not going to reach that level at his age. So the next guy, whoever the next guy is, that's you set the bar a little bit higher, and that's sort of how it works. But I remember when they first made the deal, and there were people criticizing that contract to the point that David, and I don't want to butcher his last name, had to defend himself. So there's a lot of funny money in that contract. So when you look at average annual value, that's never a good way to look at contracts because it's never going to work out that way. Because look at Jalen Hurts' contract when he signed that, the highest paid player in NFL history at the time. Look at how much of that was backloaded. Deal's going to get reworked before it finishes. That's sort of just the way of the NFL and the contract world. But be very wary of those agent-driven numbers is all I'll say.
Yeah, right. All right, so you got Cowboys 2, which is something we'll see how it shakes out in the East. That just right now, though, that's something I kind of thought would happen. I didn't know what the Commanders were going to be this year, but I expected a regression, John, based on a philosophy you have taught me. Regression to the mean, Johnny Mac. What do you think of the Commanders? I'm sure you have them third. I don't think the Giants have made that big of a push, obviously, yet.
No, they're third. I mean, disappointing. Obviously, you lose the quarterback twice, and it's one of those seasons. And, plenty of time to rebound. We'll see when they get him back. But Marcus Mariota he's done some good things, Marcus. But obviously, you're up against it. So, it's not looking like a good year for them. It's looking like a year that's going in a bad direction. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear the Cowboys have gone past them. And if the Cowboys can figure out that game, we all talk about post-bye, and Green Bay is going to be a big game, and Detroit's going to be Dallas is going to be a good game, a big game too, because it's down there. And they tied one game. So they only have 3 losses. So the Eagles are only up 1 game in a loss column. And there's a game to be played in Dallas. That's going to be a bigger game than people realize.
Yeah, and that offense. Anybody who's watched the Dallas game, I'm not talking about watching stats. I'm talking about watching the football game. The defense is bad. But that offense is hunt. I mean, that is a really good offense right now. Now it's Dak in October. We'll see if he can do it, when it matters at the end of the year. But right now, he's playing like one of the best QBs in football. And then Giants. What do you think of the Giants right now through 7 weeks, through 8 weeks? Where we are. Obviously, they beat the Eagles, which I think was more of a fluke than anything. I do think they are a team that has gotten better, and they've injected some life into their organization for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're still in a holding pattern because I think they got to move on from the coach and GM. So then you got to bring in a new coach and a new GM who's got to fit with Jackson Dart and like Jackson Dart and get the most out of Jackson Dart. And that's not necessarily as easy as it might seem. So yeah, I think they still have some pain to go through. Um, before they hopefully figure things out. But until they figure out head coach and GM, you know, it's just in a holding pattern. You're like in purgatory.
Do you think they should keep Dable with this kid?
Um, I mean, I always lean on the side of continuity, but I don't know if he's shown enough to have earned that thought.
Yeah, that's kind of me too. I do get though people who are like, "Yeah, what are you going to do? You fire another coach? Now you're resetting again in New York."
Well, the problem is you took the quarterback with this coach.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what you don't want to do. But
Well,
it happens all the time.
They didn't take Jalen Hurts with Nick. They had him
Well,
before Nick.
that's why it happened. I mean, look at Chicago with Ben Johnson. I
Right.
mean, you know, so it happens all the time, but it's not. You know, if you can avoid it, you'd like to avoid it. But I don't know if Brian Dable has proven enough. So, you know, in the case of,
I'm not a big fan of Joe Schoen or Shane, whatever the hell his name is.
well, I don't think anybody is because they got to see there's too much behind the scenes stuff they've gotten to see.
Yeah, but I think there's an art to that. Let's be real. Being an NFL GM or a GM in any sport is kind of a nasty spot. Like eventually, you're gonna piss somebody off, a lot of people off, over the course of time. Now, there is still a way to do it, and I just didn't get the vibe from some of the stuff I've seen that he does it the right way. Even the decisions. When you make a tough decision, there's a way to do it. There's a way to handle it. There's a professionalism element. I think you have to have. And I don't think he has that at all, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, you know, I think he's the reason why people aren't going to want to do off-season hard knocks because, you know, like you look at the Eagles in-house media stuff now, state-run media, I like to call it. Um, it's all edited by the Eagles.
Right. So they're not putting it out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're not putting difficult conversations out there. Could you imagine if Howie's discussion with CJ was out there?
Yeah. Right.
The hey buddy stuff. Hey buddy. Hey, we're gonna cut you tomorrow. And again, maybe CJ's selling up, load up. But any GM, I'm not picking on Howie, has to have difficult conversations. If those difficult conversations are made public, I still say to this day, the New York Giants made the right decision to move on from Saquon Barkley. What is Saquon Barkley going to do for the New York Giants? You saw it for 6 years.
Yeah, right.
They weren't in a position to take advantage of Saquon Barkley.
It's the same reason they shouldn't have drafted him at 2, despite him being worth it, or at least talented enough to go that high. They weren't ready. You need a good team to have a great
Exactly. And so many people can't understand that. I do not think at all that Joe Schoen made a bad decision for the New York Giants.
He did handle it poorly, though. I agree with you. I never thought he made a bad decision with him. He didn't handle it very well, dude.
Well, I think a lot of people, when you have a player who is so beloved with the organization, like, for old school Eagles fans, it's not that old school, but those who've been around, look at the hits they took from moving on from Brian Dawkins.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Brian Dawkins was at the end of his career. Now, he had one good year in Denver, but he was still a descending player. I mean, those are always difficult conversations.
I get that.
And they happen in every city, every team, every year, but they're generally not made public.
Yeah, the interesting part too about the Saquon thing is It wasn't all Shane. I mean, I know that clip went viral of the owner saying, I can't see him in Philadelphia. Saquon posted in his documentary on Amazon. He had a conversation with the owner, and the owner would basically told Saquon, "Yeah, well, we can't go much higher." So, like, it wasn't like Joe Shane was like, "No, I'm doing this," and the owner didn't want him to do that. The owner was on board with what he was doing, whether Saquon
Well,
did or
and
not.
you know, even the clip that went out that said, you know, that Joe Shane basically, you know, was selectively edited to make it look a different way than it really was. And that's why, again, GMs are not going to want to do that show. And most GMs don't want to put any difficult conversation, even if they handle it 100% correctly, because it just looks terrible. Especially when you're talking about players that have had success. I bet you I mean, it's clear at this point now that he's back that Brandon wanted to come back, and the Eagles, Howie steered him in a direction and convinced him that storybook ending, all that kind of stuff. They didn't want him back. I want to be honest. If they wanted him back, he wanted to come back.
Right.
So, I mean, again, this happens in every city. Every city.
No doubt. All right, good stuff there. There's the NFC East talk that we just had. So John still has Eagles at 1. He thinks the Cowboys have hopped the Commanders, which could be big. I mean, the Eagles have 2 games late in the year versus the Commanders. We originally viewed them as tough games. Now, they're still divisional games. You still, obviously, they're not going to be walking the park, but that team is not what we really thought, and they have, some injury problems. They were an old team coming in. So if the Eagles are able to get 2 wins late in the year, that could help for seeding. So keep an eye on that. That's the NFC East talk.